Hello Brawlhalla fans, it's Raidhyn and I'm coming at you with another training group tutorial. This time we're going to be going over the spear. We are on Brynn as she has 5 force, and we've got Bodvar over here who I believe has 5 armor, so we should be able to get some balanced numbers here, but let's go over the spear. So the spear is a very interesting weapon. It's got some good speed and reach. Not quite as much reach as the hammer, not quite as much speed as the guns. But the spear is a very versatile weapon, and there are a lot of nuances to using it really well. So let's go over each move and its uses. So first, standing off, you've just got your standing neutral. This move comes out really fast, and it's got a nice frontal hitbox, which means that it's actually going to do a lot more safety and interrupts than you might expect. You can actually poke a lot of people out of signatures with this. You can do, you know, really fast attacks when you're not quite sure what to do. You can see that it has a forward hitbox. So if you're stacked up, it's gonna miss. But the nice thing is that if you're, you know, far away from somebody, it's got a lot of good priority. So 21 damage is nothing to sneeze at. Now you can see it has absolutely nothing in the department of force. But it is definitely a good damage builder, and it's got a lot of priority, so make sure that you're using the neutral in all of your games. Alright, so that's the neutral. Really fast, really good in the neutral game, just not so good when you're stacked up. Now, what is good when you're stacked up on the spear is the downlight. Now, this doesn't work if they're behind you, if they're like somewhat behind you and stacked up. So like from here we can see that it misses, you know, so if they're somewhat behind you it's not going to work, but if they're partially in front of you it's going to hit. And the nice thing about this is it does almost identical damage to the neutral, but can be followed up with different combinations. So you can do downlight into sidelight, which is a true combo at all health values up until red, and just kind of being able to take people by surprise on this as well. Because one of the cool things is that you can actually hit people while they're jumping. If we enable the jump action real quick, we can have our Bodvar here jump. So we can see we can actually hit people at jump height and get our follow-up afterwards. So, you know, if he's jumping and he's jumping, you can actually hit him out of his jump with this. Now, you're going to get stuffed, you know, if he's got an attack going because of the way that your hurt box gets carried along with these nice hitboxes, but it can catch some people off by surprise and you can get a good follow-up, which is pretty sweet. All right, let's get him knocked out. So sidelight at white health actually is also its own combo starter. Now the interesting thing about sidelight is it's got this forward momentum hitbox thing, and it actually hits a pretty good distance in front of you on both hits, which is nice, but it's not gonna hit somebody who's stacked. You know, this is the thing where like if you're too far away to land one of these, you can get that distance using the sidelight. So you can get somebody at long range like this, but what's cool is that you can actually follow this up if you hit it closely enough with certain neutrals and other signatures and frame traps and the like. So sidelight's actually a really useful tool, not only in the footsies game to get that extra distance that you might need, but also because there are some cool things. It also combos into itself at completely white health, and if we could get Bodvar down here, we might be able to demonstrate this. Alright, so as I was saying, at white health it can combo into itself, which is pretty sweet, and it does quite a bit of damage. At later health levels, you can occasionally follow this up with signatures and frame traps. They're not true combos on Brynn, but they are true combos on Ada, which is pretty nice. So sidelight is a useful tool when you need to get that extra distance or when you are trying to get some really good early damage onto your opponent. All right, so with all of that being said, for the grounded light moves, let's go over the recoveries and the ground pounds. So recovery and ground pound look identical. They have these really long, you know, windy hitboxes, and you can see that they're pretty narrow. They used to be pretty unbeatable by a lot of things, but now both of these don't have as much priority as they used to. What is really nice is because of the width involved, what you want to do is you want to angle these so that you're always hitting the opponent like around the edge, because not only do you get better force this way and better direction, excuse me as I land a Brynn signature I wasn't intending, but it also helps prevent people from ground pounding you, picking you up with hammers, and retaliating in general. Because when people retaliate this with either of these moves, what they're doing is they're looking to retaliate in the center, so you kind of always want to angle yourself so that you're hitting them with the edge of the spear if possible. These moves, you know, like, even though this is a great move and you can catch people off guard with it, you don't want to be doing it all of the time. You know, they're at 18 points of damage, you're getting less damage than doing a neutral, you know, so it shouldn't be the only tool that you're using in your kit. But what's nice about it is that if, let's say, you're doing one of these jumpy battles and everything, you think somebody's going to signature, you can actually hop in the air and use an instant air version of this, where you're basically combining the down input with another jump, so that if somebody is going to retaliate, as their attack comes out, you've just jumped and you're immediately retaliating. So that's probably one of the most useful things with the spear ground pound that a lot of diamond level players are utilizing, but you don't really see too often in the lower levels. And lower levels are just like, oh look, like I'm just gonna ground pound. But adding it as a bait and punish tool is actually pretty useful and still gets used at high levels quite frequently. Alright, so that's your ground pound and your recover. Let's talk about the airborne moves. So let's get Bodvar back over here into jumping. Alright, so obviously there's the side light. Now, what's great about the side light is that it does a fair amount of damage for a side light. Other side lights are far less damaging than this, and by far less, I mean by like a couple of points, but you get what I'm saying. It comes out nice and quick. It's got some generous hitboxes, and what's nice is that you can actually, if you're like most other side lights, if you land one, you can kind of continue to chase down the opponent with multiple ones of these and just be really aggressive with tossing these out. Because it's kind of got this lowering hitbox, it's pretty generous with the area that it hits. And it's definitely something you would just want to get comfortable with. Now the thing is that, you know, like in situations where they're right on top of you, there's a chance that you're gonna miss because, you know, these hitboxes, again, they go out in front, right? They're not covering, you know, to the top or the bottom or the left or the right. So that situation, what you want to do is you want to use the spear neutral. Now the spear neutral doesn't do a whole lot of damage in and of itself, but what it does do is it gives you this great big giant hitbox that has loads of priority. I mean, as you can see, like, we basically got a flat circle all around Bryn, and it's this great juggle tool as well that you can use in your juggling games because it's very, very difficult to hit somebody out of this move. You can't really contest it directly. So this neutral is great to mix up, you know, when you're doing these side airs and somebody dodges through, you know, you can do a side air and then jump back and, you know, do a neutral right afterwards, which is pretty sweet. All right, last and finally, the other thing to talk about is this pogo. The pogo is nuts. It does 20 points of damage on Bryn. It has great priority. It will pretty much beat any type of upward attack with the exception of the gun's air neutral. And it also has, at later health levels, such a good amount of force, you can even use it in edge guarding situations. Let's see if we can get Bodvar knocked over here to the edge. Look at that. Look at how much force that does when they're at red health. I mean, you can get knockouts off of this thing. And what's cool about it is that it actually has this kind of forward momentum property. As you use it, it actually kind of, your character continues to travel with it, and there is no downtime. So what's interesting is that you can use it and then be really low to the ground afterwards to follow up with another move. So if you aren't pogoing, you definitely should. This move is safe against pretty much all grounded attacks or all anti-pogoing attacks, with the exception of, you know, like I was saying, guns air neutral will beat it. And occasionally, you know, people can hit you if you whiff it. You know, it's got a little bit of a narrow hitbox, but this move is godlike, and you should totally be using it. So now that all that's done, let's quickly talk about, like, the spear game plan. Spear is really good at mixing up being aggressive, having a very dominating air game, and also allowing you to play defensively. And in my opinion, Spear is one of the easiest weapons in the game to really develop your own playstyle with. You know, you can come in here and get good punishes. You can really chase after people. You can stick to people really well. You know, you can punish pretty much, you know, omnidirectional. You can go all over the place with this thing. And there are a lot of little tricks and nuances to it that are just super, super fun. So for instance, like, one of the things that's great about the spear is how big of a throw hitbox it has, right? You know, like, it's gonna cover a huge area of space if you toss it upwards. And you can use that to, you know, make all sorts of setups and situations happen that normally wouldn't. There's, you know, this move right here, which, by the way, if you use this on somebody who likes to dodge backwards, like let's say he comes in and then he dodges away, this will actually punish that dodge, which is really neat because, you know, it moves forward across the distance of the dodge range. You can use this to, you know, counter people who are jumping. You can use it in an aggressive fashion, and in general, the spear is just an excellent weapon in my opinion. I think it's in a really good spot right now. It's certainly not unbeatable. You know, it doesn't have the speed of the axe or the sword or the katars. It doesn't have the damage of the hammer. It doesn't have, you know, some of the zany knockouts of the lance, but the spear is just so incredibly solid at basically letting you do whatever you want to. It's really a very free-form weapon that you can have a lot of fun with, and it's something where if you haven't tried out a spear character, I'd strongly encourage you to do it, because there's just so many awesome and fun things that you can do on the spear. So yeah, that's pretty much all that I've got for the breakdown on the spear. Sorry for some of the little hiccups here and there, but you know, you guys have asked for these guides and I'm happy to deliver. Maybe at some point I'll be able to do something that's a little bit more in depth when it comes to techniques and tactics and match footage and that kind of thing, but for now I'm hoping that just kind of like walking through the moveset will provide you guys with some new ideas for how to utilize some of these moves and implement them into your game. So thank you guys so much for watching and for liking this video, and I will see you next time.